Good evening. I'll call us back to open session. We do have a couple things to report out. One is that we have completed the superintendent's evaluation with a positive result, and we will be working on the evaluation tool and her goals at our July workshop. So we will report those goals out at the August meeting. So that takes care of that. And then let me read our public comment announcement. So individuals may address the board on agenda items on both closed session and regular session agenda during public participation and or at the time they are under consideration by completing the form provided on the table at the entrance and submitting the form to the administrative assistant. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers will be chosen at random, and each person may only speak once per agenda topic and is required to address the board from the podium. Public comment cannot be acted upon or discussed by the board unless placed on the agenda at a subsequent meeting in accordance with the Brown Act. The board may request staff to respond orally at the meeting or in writing at a future time. And there's a 20-minute public comment per topic. And please remember that the meeting is videoed and broadcasted on the YouTube channel. Okay. All right, so we will start with public participation on non-agenda items. Is there anyone here to speak on a non-agenda? I recognize you all, so I think you're here for an agenda item. Okay. All right, if nothing, we'll go to the approval of the agenda. Is there anything we think we need to move or pull this evening?
I move to approve the agenda.
Okay.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. All right. So this evening, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance as our patriotic exercise. Acknowledgements for donations or accomplishments within the district.
I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Paoli for graduating from MIG and getting her picture in the CSBA letter last month.
I forgot to bring the newsletter in.
It's one of the quickest turnarounds for a board member that I think I've seen. So, good job.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Anything else?
I believe Rotary gave a $500 donation to our band program. So thank you, Rotarians out there. We will make sure we put you formally on the agenda in August with a form. So that just came in.
All right. Any communication? Okay. We did receive a thank you note from our former student trustee for a thank you note for being on the board and our token of appreciation from him. So. Okay, so we're moving on to public participation on agenda items. So do we have anybody that would like to speak on an item at this time before the item comes up on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right along. So our board report, we've met 2 weeks ago to regular items, so this should be a short and sweet list for anything that we've... Anything?
No.
I don't watch TV, but I stream meetings. So I have a few things to report. I wanted to thank Superintendent Walker for attending the city's community emergency prep forum. And that was, you can stream that and have information, and ready.gov was a link that you can view for prepping for emergency or even the PG&E shutdown. The other, I wanted to remind our fellow board members that CSBA learning modules that I was telling you about probably a month ago, the free access to it ends on Friday. And I was able to do the
You mean
summer
tomorrow?
learning. Yes. The summer learning module was very informative, but I haven't been able to use the strategic budgeting So maybe if you can log in and at least check it out, because they wanted to have input on that, because I do think they'll charge us in the future for something like that, but they're only 20 minutes. So,
June 30th. So we have-
right, tomorrow,
Tomorrow's 28th.
28th,
So we have a couple days. So
Sunday.
two more
Sunday.
days. Yeah, 2 more days.
we have a little time.
Um,
That's our weekend.
Yes, but it's something that you can get through very easily. EdSource also had a podcast, and they have them weekly. If you aren't, I don't know if any of you are, if you go onto EdSource, it's a resource that you can, all the top topics of what's going on in education for California. And they give you a weekly podcast that's 20 minutes. And this week's was about charter schools and about the state bond for new construction and modernization, because I believe a few years ago, quite a few years ago, it was $9 billion, but we've gone through all of that bond money. So they're hoping to have on the ballot in March of 2020, $13 billion. And the conversation on this podcast was that the equity is still not there. Most communities that can get the matching bond have communities that support bond measures for new construction or modernizing a site. So they were just saying that still needs to be worked on, but they still want to get that out if the public is, willing to support. So it was just the conversation. So the podcast on EdSource is really good, and it's worth your time. And the other webinar that I did was CDE, and this was all about, I'll just give you a really quick, because it's amazing what our DO office has to deal with about ed data versus data quest, CalPads, and then what does census day enrollment mean? And then you also have the accumulative enrollment. And then you have the ADA, which, all of this affects different, the numbers are different, and there's so many different things that roll out for our financing, our funding, absenteeism. And in-house suspension was a question on this webinar that you could submit a question and they would answer it live, which was timely. And the question was in-house suspensions. How does that read out? And so they were able to say, well, you're present according to ADA, the student's present, but you're not in your normal classroom. So then for chronic absenteeism towards the 10%, you're absent. So it's interesting how a child can be in an in-house suspension and it affects enrollment and other things in a different way. So it's complicated. And so it was just a scratching of all of this that schools have to deal with. So I appreciate all staff's work about why it's important to say where a student is and enrollment and attendance and all of those factors. And then I also just went back and reviewed some of the MIG training sessions that I attended in preparation for the board workshop on July 24th, and setting direction. So that's what I tried to do on downtime when we don't have a huge agenda in a board packet. And one last, there was a really good, quick 1-minute YouTube about vaping. It's a June 3rd posting on Mendocino County Tobacco Control Program, which I think the Gang Coalition had put out on Facebook, and it's worth for families to look at. It was showing you in the mix of like a child's dumping out their backpack and look on the table and what's an eraser and what's a memory stick and what's a vape and what's, if you're a parent that doesn't know about any of this, and it's so, back in the day, if it was a cigarette, you would be able to identify your child's doing something because you could have the fragrance of it. But with vaping, it's a sweet smell, and you would maybe think they're eating candy or, so it was just a quick little video, a visual of what this stuff looks like, because I've been, as a parent and just being in the community, I've had a couple of families saying, I wish we'd have education on this. How do you, we need to kind of push it out. So I don't know if we could link that and put it on our Facebook page or have something on our homepage, or it just was, really quick to, demonstrate what the items look like and just to have a conversation and families, because they don't even know, and their kids don't even know that sweet taste, the smell, that it's really harmful. And, you know, when you find this link, it'll go into other resources to have that conversation and just the awareness, the education of how vaping is dangerous. And that there are so many, it's got to have to come to a bigger level because there are kids that are just getting it online. I mean, it's easily accessed. You have to be 18, but no one's checking ID. So it really needs to come down and up to have it be less accessible.
Okay,
Thank you.
and Becky and I attended the Friends of the Mendocino College Coast Campus Scholarship Evening. It was both the scholarships for the local students and also our Adopt a Fifth Grader program. It was a very nice event out at the Mendocino College campus. Okay. Okay, so we're on to superintendent's report.
So the first thing in your packet is the interdistrict transfer report that we have in board policy that will be reported to you annually. So questions 1 and, so there are 4 questions there. The difficulty is that questions 3 and 4 reporting to you on who is transferred back and forth by race, ethnicity, gender, we don't ask those questions anymore. So, and if we don't know who the kids are, we can't really report that. So 3 and 4 were difficult to classify if they weren't our students. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But what we do have, and thank you, Anna, for getting this chart together, is you can see who moved from Mendo to Fort Bragg. We approved 12. Who moved from Fort Bragg to Mendo, and who came to us from other districts. So those are the numbers there. Are there questions on that?
And this year was a little bit, did this count all those ones we were trying to catch up on? So it's a little more, a little elevated, yeah.
Any questions other than that? Okay. Do you want me to move on to the next one?
Mm-hmm.
So next we have the multi-tiered system of support. And this came from a board member just asking, saying, hey, Becky, could you give us a brief overview of what MTSS is? So in your packet, you have the CDEs, the California Department of Education, CDE. You have their definition of what MTSS is. MTSS is the multi-tiered system of support. And to give you the Reader's Digest version of it, when we talk about a multi-tiered system of report, that's a huge umbrella over the district. That we say, okay, we are going to look at all of our kiddos, and we're really going to shore up our Tier 1 instruction, which is what teachers deliver to the general ed population. And what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we're going to shore that up and make sure that that delivery of instruction is standards-based, engages students. We look at the 4 PLC questions of what do we want kids to know? How do we know that they've learned it? What do we do when they do learn it? What do we do when they don't learn it? So we really shore up that Tier 1 first delivery of instruction. From there, there are going to be kiddos who we miss, who don't access it for one reason or another. The multi-tiered system of support looks at, okay, what do we do next? There are 3 pillars of MTSS. One is academic, which is what I just talked about. One is behavioral, looking at a kid's behavior and how does that enhance or impede their access to education. And then also the third, which encompasses all of it, is the social emotional piece. Are they coming to school ready to learn? Are they having trouble at home? Are there barriers to their education because of their social emotional needs are not being met? So when we talk about multi-tiered systems of support, we're talking about multi-tiers, multiple ways for us to intervene and respond to the needs of children, and then systematizing that so that any teacher at any school says, okay, this is the process we use. This is how we identify kids. This is how we screen them so that we know how to get them into intervention, and we screen them again because we know how to get them out. Okay, and then what's that instruction like in between all of that? So that as parents move through our school system, they begin to understand those systems as well. It's not different for Redwood, different for Dana Grade, different for middle school, different from high school. The idea behind it is to systematize what we do so that our kids are successful and that we address those 3 pillars, the academic, the behavior, and the social emotional. That's why restorative practices is embedded in this. That's why our social emotional learning plans are embedded in this. It's a multi-tiered system. And what you will be seeing in future presentations from me on MTSS, the mantra for MTSS is all means all, not just a portion. When we say all kids can learn, then we're talking about all students, but in their time and in their way, and at their pace. So you can see all the education ease in the packet if you want to get technical about it. So are there any questions about that?
And so I know, because I did forget, we attended agenda setting, and I know we had the conversation there. So also, the public probably doesn't realize that this is like a philosophy that you're doing at the district, and then there's kind of, would you say, chairs of each section that meet 4 times a year? So it's more than just,
So
it's not
kind
like
of like a
it's not like
big-
an outfit coming in, like people coming in
No.
and doing all this work. It's our staff working really hard.
It's a team of people who will take the leadership roles in this, and then they disseminate them out to the state, to the staff. So it's kind of like we have a team of senators who looks at the direction and the systems of the district. We make the decisions, and then we disseminate that out to the sites.
Perfect, thank you.
Any questions? Okay. All right, so that moves us to the possibility of a CSEA report. Seeing no one, how about an FBDTA? Gonna go no on that. Okay, so we'll move on to section 9, the approval of the agenda consent items. These are routine and non-controversial. We have 2 items this evening. Is there anything that anybody needs to pull or discuss? Okay.
Make a motion to approve the agenda, consent calendar.
A second?
Diana, can you read those?
Yes, 9.1, consolidated application for 2019-20, and 9.2, personnel action report.
Okay. All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. All right, so item number 10 is the oral recommendation regarding the proposed changes to the salary and/or fringe benefits of the superintendent for 19 through 2023. So effective June 1st, the salary and benefits recommendation for the superintendent's contract are an annual salary of $136,896. What did I say?
Can I stop you? Can I interrupt you for just a second, President Babcock?
Yes?
On the personal action report, I see an error, and I know you just approved it. I don't know what protocol is on that.
We have to amend the motion.
Right, with the correction.
Sorry, I just noticed it.
Is it what was changed recently? there
No,
was
there's
a-
an employee on here that status is probationary 0 and status should be temporary, which
Okay.
is way different than a probationary 0.
Can we pull it in for August 8th, or is that cutting it
Mhm.
too close? Can we pull it and put it on August 8th?
Or do we amend amend the motion with
So you're moving into action and take out consent to action.
just her?
Just no,
I
that'll
think
have
the
just the
report,
first
the whole
whole
report.
P- okay.
Have a motion
And then
that says
reapprove
we
it with
approve
the
it with the
adjustment.
9.2.
Okay,
Sorry.
so we're backing up.
Okay, so we're going to approve
9.1.
item 9.1 on the consent calendar and move 9.2 to the action calendar.
Okay,
A second?
okay. I won't have you read them since you said it. All right, those in favor of that
Yes.
adjustment? Okay, opposed? Okay, thank you, Becky. All right, so we're going to move 9.2 down to after 11.10. Anna, is that
Yeah.
doing okay? Okay. All right. So back to oral recommendation. So we're on salary in addition to and the health and welfare benefits for a total cost of $13,412.35, which reflects the same terms and conditions such benefits are provided to other full-time certificated employees. The salary shall be increased effective July 1, 2020 of 2%, provided the superintendent receives an evaluation of an overall satisfactory or better rating for the 1920 school year. And salary may be increased at any time during the term of the contract at the sole discretion of the board. Any increase in salary shall be orally reported in open session before approval in open session at a regular board meeting as required by law. Okay, so that is just for the oral recommendation, and we will make action here down in our board action items. Okay, so moving to that section of the agenda, we have the first one. We are now going to approve that statement. So 11.1 is the superintendent's contract for July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2023. This was gone over in the early part of the school year, but we are formally approving it and signing it now. Okay.
I just noticed the contract's not a part of the packet, is that normal?
Or is that something that should be a part of the minute packet, or?
It's been it's a public, it's online, isn't it?
No.
Oh, it has been in the past. It's a public document.
Okay. Or I guess,
Not sure if it's supposed to be in the packet. If
Okay.
it might have been in the packet, we put it in.
Yeah, it's never been.
I don't think
I've
it's ever
never
been in
seen
the
it.
packet, but.
Okay.
I've never
It's the
seen
same
it. It's
contract we
not,
approved, so.
yeah, it's not the
Well, not you.
procedure
Right.
or practices we've done, but
okay.
anyone
So
could
we
ask
approved
for
it contingent.
And that's why you're required to report out the amounts.
But anyone could, that wants to see a copy could obtain a copy from the district office.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions from the public? All right. So if we have a motion,
I move to approve 11.1, the superintendent's contract commencing July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2023.
Second?
okay. Any discussion?
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
trustee Paoli,
Yes.
trustee Mattson,
Yes.
and President Bucko.
Yes. Okay. In doing the current superintendent or the coming superintendent contract, it has been found that there were a couple bloops in the prior contract. And so the first item we need to amend is the minutes from the August 9th meeting. It's a very minor, do you have that pulled? No? Okay, let me grab it so we can read that. So it's on page 3 if you have the packet. President Owen made a statement, but it should read, President Owen gave an oral recommendation to approve the 2% increase on the superintendent's salary for the 17-18 year as written in the contract. She also recommended approval of a 2% raise for the 18-19 year as written in the superintendent's contract pending a positive evaluation, so similar to what we read this evening. So that change is being proposed to properly reflect what did take place at that meeting. It was legally not written correctly.
Right, exactly. The minutes did not reflect what was read out. And of course, when staff went back to review the meeting, it had already been deleted, the recording. So they weren't able to, that wasn't enough for our legal counsel to say that it was reported out properly because the minutes didn't reflect what we all remember. So that's what this is clarifying. And I don't know if there's any other questions.
I was just, do I need to abstain because I wasn't?
There? Or does it matter?
That's a great question. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I think I will. It
No,
won't affect the
you
vote,
can.
but
Well, I guess,
yeah.
There's still a
There's still
quorum.
Still a quorum.
Still a
Right.
quorum.
okay.
It won't affect the vote, so I would feel better because I wasn't there. And I've not watched the video.
Yeah, no one has. It's gone. So we're just, yeah.
And now with our current video system, they'll be there archived
Correct.
forever, right?
Mhm.
So another positive. Thank you again, team, for videotaping.
I'll make a motion we approve item 11.2, amended minutes for the August 9th, 2018 meeting.
And I second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay.
Okay, trustee Schneider,
Abstain.
trustee Paoli,
Yes.
trustee Mattson,
Yes.
President Babcock.
Yes. Okay, so then in this, we also have found that it was not recorded properly, but had been approved for the superintendent contract for 2017 through July 30th, 2019. So that's the current.
One that's ending.
Mm-hmm. So are there any questions? Again, it's kind of cleaning up paperwork. It wasn't that we did not do all these things, but legal decided they needed to be done a little differently.
This sequence of events has to be specific
Mhm.
and correct, otherwise it could come back and be a problem later.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we wanted
Okay. All right. Any questions? All right.
that. I'll make that motion.
To approve the employment contract for July 1, 2017, ending June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
So should he make that, since it's going back in time, and he recused himself on the first item? I don't know, just to be consistent.
Right, I thought about that, but yeah, I've read it.
So he can do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I thought about that too, but
Mhm.
Okay. President Babcock,
Yes.
trustee Schneider,
yes.
trustee Paoli,
Yes.
and trustee Mattson.
Yes.
Okay. So moving on to 11.4, and we have a corrected copy that we were given. Just
For
the
the
MOU.
revised.
No, it's here in the file. I just
Here.
have a lot of
I
things
have an
tonight. Why, it's up, I think she uploaded it too.
Yep.
Okay. So last 2 weeks ago, the committee, the Sports Foundation was here, presented the plan, the project. Barry talked about it a little bit, and then we're moving to action tonight to approve an MOU. Should we say anything else?
You have a copy of the MOU. Barry, is there anything you want to add about this?
Please approve. That's all.
There were just some minor additions to the MOU, just to clarify that we had requested. So that was the only thing that was changed. And then we got clarification. It's just a document that tells the state that we want to keep the stadium a stadium for 30 years, and that we want to work together with the Sports Foundation so that they are able to apply for a grant. So, of course, I'd like to support that.
Is there anything the committee would like to add or say, or? They're all here in the audience, for those of you that can't see. Well, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank all of the years of people. Joe, I know you've been there from the beginning, but thank you for the gifts that you keep giving. So it's a lot. Our community is a wonderful place, and that stadium is, and I have not had family members use it. So I'm not saying this is, a plug for some personal gain, but it's pretty amazing what our community will come together to do. So thank you for all of you for doing that. And this sounds like an even amazing, quite an endeavor, and we'll make it quite beautiful.
But you have a great track record of completing and going forward, so.
No pun intended.
Oh, right.
Without further ado, I will make a motion we approve 11.4 MOU with the Mendocino Coast Sports Foundation.
A second?
And we're approving this document.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. There's a very slight typo on the last page.
Shame on you, Diane.
Just either party may terminate. It's right in the electronic one, but not in this one. At least
Oops,
in
missing an A there.
Just very minor, just
Oh.
make that little change.
Send me a cleaner copy.
Sorry.
All right, sorry, we're on the motion, okay. We got a first and a second?
Yep.
Okay, any discussion?
President Babcock,
Yes.
trustee Metzen,
Yes.
trustee Paoli.
Yes.
And trustee Schneider.
Yes.
Yes, Joe. Yes.
Still going to be daylight for a couple hours.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're far from done, my friend.
Thanks for all the work.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to 11.5, we have the MOU for Fort Bragg Unified to provide lunch services to Three Rivers. And I think they need to provide lunch services for their students. And we have, I don't know if it was offered or asked, but it would be likely that we would be the one that would provide lunch for them. And this details out the agreement, who will provide what, and for the price. And
So the chartering agency, that would be us, is obligated to help the charter school provide this. Three Rivers had a choice between providing breakfast or lunch. They could also do both. I think they made a wise choice in doing lunch because kids are coming with their food already. They were able to come and visit our schools. I think I reported on this last time, and see what services, what meals we provide and what service. And so this MOU has gone back and forth between Three Rivers and us and legal. And we've signed waivers so that legal could represent both of us. And then Pilar started with by taking an example from an existing district who is doing this. So
And they keep track of all their numbers and free and reduced, and it's all under their
Well,
school kind.
they do, and Pilar takes on a big bulk of that because she will then be responsible for helping them remain compliant, and because our kitchens are the one preparing the food, so she helps them with that.
but
And
they're
that's-
responsible,
For
my understanding,
submitting.
right, they have to get their reimbursements.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
their responsibility. Any other questions?
Were you on the board when we had the meeting with Three Rivers and all the different things that they needed to do to become compliant with their demographic and all those different things? Well, this is one of the things that came up in that meeting. And they seem to be doing a good job of whittling down all the deficiencies that they had and coming right along. So it's nice to see they're moving ahead.
I've been able to attend most of their board meetings. I wasn't able to attend last week, but they've been really functioning well and doing everything they said they would do. And they're moving forward even with the facility. So there's lots of good things happening at Three Rivers. And I appreciate all the effort that they've put into in their charter renewal and into this. So.
Very good. I mean, I thank you for all your efforts, and staff were ahead of the curve because that's the big topic, on the federal level and the state level about charter schools and how there's kind of you have to collaborate, but there's no one in the middle to kind of meet in the middle to know who's responsible for what. And so it's been a struggle for many districts, and we're fortunate to have a charter school, but there are many districts that have, more than one, 7. And so there's not really a position for that per se. And so I think we're kind of ahead of the curve there, which thank you for the staff for all their efforts.
Has the Three Rivers Board approved this already?
They approved it last at their meeting on Tuesday.
Okay.
Roger emailed me that.
And what does the cost cover? Just food? Does it cover time, staff
It covers
time?
part.
It covers.
Go ahead.
We did a pretty extensive calculation of the cost of providing a meal, and it includes part of the indirect cost that is built into our expenses also.
Okay. And then I noticed a $60 fee if they don't order at least 50 lunches? Is that,
We have to order food. We
Right.
can't just say that we're going to do 50 lunches one day and 5 lunches the next day. That's the issue. And we have to make sure that we have the staff able to make this happen. So that's why the MOU is very particular, because we can't just say, well, one day we're going to do 2. Well, we've ordered all this food. And that's the conundrum here. So that meal cost really is about recouping not only the food, the cost of the food, it's the staff time,
Mhm.
it's product, it's part of Pilar's time because she's the one that's going to have to work with them to make sure that they're in compliance. So there's a whole level more. It's not just, I want a $5 lunch.
right?
So the food is actually minimal compared to the staff time. And then Three Rivers will get a level of reimbursement as well.
Which they're responsible for.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that's good.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
I move to approve the Three Rivers Charter School Lunch Memorandum of Understanding.
A second?
Thank you. Any discussion?
Is there any public?
Any questions from the public? In the essence of putting anybody to sleep, oh, this is the wrong one, but it's pretty long. I don't think we want to read it. But it is available online. So, okay,
Okay. President Babcock?
yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to just pause for a minute, and if you guys would like to go home and not feel like you're disrupting us.
The next part's super fun. It's our
Yeah, we're
LCAP.
getting into budget and, so,
Or view from home.
so,
Thank you, folks.
thank you very much.
Mr. Sutton, you have to stay. No, I don't. You didn't like me when I went to school here.
Oh, Joe, you're a gem.
Barry, do you want to go?
I'm facilities needs assessment.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
It's the first on the list.
What's the last on the list?
No, it's the first on the
Well, on there.
discussion.
Right.
We still got to get through LCAP.
This is the fun part. This is as Barry Silva would say, the meat and potatoes of the meeting.
I don't know, I think we've kind of beaten that. This might be the meat. He might
Oh, yeah,
be the
you're
meat
very
and
true,
potatoes
very
tonight.
True, very true.
All right, gang, let's go back to 11.6, the LCAP. So as everyone knows, we've been discussing this for quite some time. We're at the end of our 3-year cycle, so nothing has really changed as far as the goals, and it's really what dollars.
Modifications to some of the actions. There's a couple of new things this year. One is the federal addendum that discusses how we're using and tracking the successful outcomes of our federal dollars. And then there's also the first few pages of it are the budget overview for parents. And it has some pretty charts, and it explains in another way again how what's reported here. Our total budgeted expenditures are 22.7 million, of which 3.8 is identified in this document. And that's because this document is meant to show how the actions we are taking to meet our goals specifically, and not so much the general core, because there's, obviously educating children is our goal, but the core of that is not included in here. This is the specific goals we're addressing of career college readiness, closing the achievement gap, and school culture and climate. So that's why only, about 15% of the budget is actually in this document.
And I did like seeing the charts and the infographs. It does.
Yeah, and the
really-
infographic is also in Spanish, all of which will be posted on the website.
It's much easier to go through than the 153 pages.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any questions or
So
comments?
I guess my question, it's kind of a general question about the LCAP. Earlier, we saw progress report, benchmarks.
The dashboard.
Dashboards. And a lot of the categories, several of the categories had red and yellow. And I guess my question is, do you guys feel that this LCAP is addressing, trying to improve upon some of that,
Yes.
those benchmarks?
So, Board Member Schneider and I had a great conversation today about how the LCAP addresses a lot of the red, the orange, and the yellow that we have on our dashboard, and also that you saw in our benchmark reporting. The state is shifting the site plans, which were the former single plans, right, to now the school plans, but the point of the matter is it's the school plan, that we are taking those school plans and we're connecting them integrally to the LCAP. So that's one of the reasons why our goals at the LCAP level are 100% aligned with all the school plans. They're the same goals. So when Redwood, Dana Gray, middle school, high school talk about college and career readiness, we should be able to find everything they're talking about in their school plans within our LCAP, in that same goal, so that it's not that we're creating a plan on top of what the schools are doing. Okay. In years past, there was the site plan, then there was the district plan, then there was a strategic plan, and you had all these plans, and none of them were really aligned. So this does that. When our principals report to you and show you benchmark data that's in the red and in the orange and in the yellow, we look to our multi-tiered systems of support to address that red and that orange. And we also look to what we're doing through that multi-tiered system of support to look at our interventions, look at our support classes, look at how we're identifying those kids, how are we screening them in, what are the criteria for them to get out. So that's all part of this. Thank you for the question. Bless you. Bless you.
Excuse me. Any other questions? Okay. No public, so we won't have any questions from them.
So I move to approve the local accountability and control plan for 2019-20.
Okay, any discussion?
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
President Babcock?
Yes.
And Trustee Schneider?
Okay, we're moving on to the budget and the resolution 1912 to put the reserves above the minimum. So again, same thing as the LCAP. We've been talking about this all year. We've been really trying to be above or ahead of budget crisis. And so
Again, the numbers at the end of 3 years are kind of small, but we have that reserve. So I don't think we'll have any problem, and the deficit spending is coming down, so I think the county will be pretty happy. This is the full packet that's going to be sent to the county and then to the state. There were some minor changes from what we talked about 2 weeks ago with some new information that's come in, and it's actually already changed. So it's, by the time we get to August, I'll probably be bringing you budget revisions that are going to change things again. Plus, the governor hasn't actually signed the budget yet, so there are some things that are still a little bit up in the air. We actually might get a little bit of a break on our PERS, so that'll be good. But other things are coming through that are not as good, but we just, hope that they balance each other out.
Well, the changes being from a couple weeks ago, so now we're good at that, or both.
A little bit of both. We ended up very close to the same place, though. I mean, some of it, the benefit costs ended up a little lower than what I had projected a couple weeks ago, because we had trouble getting it into the system, well, the county had trouble getting it into the system correctly. So that came through a little bit lower than the projection. Salaries and benefits were really pretty, salaries were really pretty close, so that was a nice thing. And there were a couple other things that got kind of moved around a little bit. We added some more things into supplemental concentration, but those are in the LCAP. So, but all in all, a very similar bottom line to what we were looking at.
So I see that the PERS contributions for us are going to go down like 1% a year for the next 3 years?
They might, yeah. They'll go down 1% for 1920, and then that will carry through to the other years. So the out years will also be impacted if that passes, which we think it will, just hasn't been signed yet.
So when I read it, and maybe I'm a little behind on this, I read it as the increases that were proposed were going to be decreased by 1%.
Yes.
There were still going to be increases.
They were increasing, yeah, but they're going to be
Yes.
increasing less than they were.
So I don't-
18%, 17.
So they'll be lower than what we
Yeah.
have in the 3-year projection,
Right.
but they're still going up.
And they're
Right.
doing that for all public agencies.
Yes.
Wow.
So I just want to clarify that. I don't
Yeah.
want people to think that our PERS costs are going
Going
down.
down, no, no, no.
Our
The-
PERS costs are
Our increase
increasing.
is going down.
But
Well, it
the
depends on which
level-
side of
it's
the
still going
political
up.
spectrum you're on. You can make an argument
Well,
either way, depending on how you want.
For us, we are still going to spend
Right.
more money next year on PERS than we
Yes.
are this year. The second year out, we're going to spend more money on PERS than we were the previous year. The third year, we're still going to spend more on PERS than we the previous year from that. The amount of the increase is not going to be going up as much, but it's going up.
So, but still, we're projecting the higher rate, so if it does fall back a little bit, that does help us. Because our
Yes.
projections
Yes,
have
it
the
does
the
help.
higher
We
rates.
have a higher projection
Right.
in there, but the increase.
Then why,
is
it's
up.
interesting that the STRS was like 1% the first year, and then 0.3, and then 0.3. It just seems odd how they come up with these numbers.
They're all actuarials. It's all actuarials, and
Statistics.
yeah, those people who are, well, I mean, I'm sure actuaries now rely on computer models as much as anything, but yeah, it's an interesting world.
We'll take it.
So I had a question, Wendy, on the reserve part. So the
Mhm.
315 is that just kind of in that bottom 455? I'm on the last two pages, yeah.
Which I was very happy to see that.
Is, because it doesn't get lined out anywhere?
You mean the transfer?
Well, or the money that we're specifically saying we want this in the reserves, because there's the 3%, which the 6.
Right, so it's part of the
just part of the
transfers out of the general fund, and then it shows up in Fund 17 as a transfer in.
Okay, so it's not on this page, the one that has what's at the end of the year, what's there?
Oh, no, that's just
Okay.
showing what the reserves are going to be, and our justification for why they're higher than the
But
required.
the 315 that you're putting in there is somewhere in one of these lines?
It is in there. The balance is higher because we had a little bit left over, the money that had been going in there before, and this is something we'll need to look at in the fall, was collected from the solar credits. It was committed to paying for the district-wide wireless project. So there's a little bit left over from those funds. So the board can make a decision to add those to the reserves or use that money for some other purpose. So that's a discussion we can have in the fall.
Which
So-
made me, when you said, maybe it's not the right time to ask, but are we seeing any residuals for the lighting project yet?
It's hard to say because the PG&E rates have gone up. So what was the last thing they came up with on our usage? Has our usage been better from Prop 39 project?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, so,
Not huge because the PG&E rates increased.
right, but the kilowatts used have improved, so
Decreased.
they would have,
We would
our
have seen
costs
the
would
same,
have gone
right?
up even more had we not done it.
Okay, any other questions for Wendy or Becky?
Yeah, well,
On page 5 of 27, SACS financial report, well, I don't know what this,
Do you have a?
The
what page
criterion
it is in the whole
standards?
document?
yeah.
Okay.
That's page 20 of 169. Your projected local property taxes,
Yes.
your first and second subsequent years,
Mm-hmm.
it's like $7 million less than, I think there's just a number missing.
Wait a second, okay.
Because the number's the same, it looks like it's not changing.
Right. Yep, there's a number missing.
Okay. Just before you submit it.
Yeah, I will fix that before I submit.
And do income from property taxes not change, is that?
It's not that they don't change, it's just there's absolutely no way to anticipate what's going to happen next year and the year out. We always just use what this number has been provided to us for the current year, for
you
the
just
budget year by the county.
Roll it out.
And, yeah, so we
Okay.
just assume flat property taxes because there's no way to know,
Right.
really.
And we still probably haven't seen the whole hit of the fires yet. So that
Well,
number-
except that the state is backfilling those.
Oh, okay.
So they're kind of it's kind of a hold harmless thing on that. And the other thing about the property taxes is it doesn't impact our overall funding because it's a piece of the LCFF funding calculation. So the entire base grant includes property taxes and the EPA and several other pieces that all add into it. So if the property taxes go down, then the state contribution goes up. So that's, it doesn't impact our bottom line at all. The LCFF calculation remains the same.
Well, that's nice.
Do you guys have any updated thoughts on enrollment for next year?
We're still tracking it. So right now, our TK numbers are at 21, and our kinder numbers are at 119.
Still low.
Yes.
It's still lower than we were hoping, although we lost a very small senior class, and the incoming kinders are going to be more than what, so enrollment overall should be a little bit higher. And we do a projection, moving each year down and, pulling out the 1 year and adding the new year and moving them all into the right sites.
Yeah, because in here, it decreases each year, even though the new ones are more than the old ones.
We always hold our breath right at the first day of school, and then we track attendance like crazy for the first couple of weeks. And when we get to October 15th, that's, I believe, is that Census Day, October 15th?
Yep.
That's the day that our first real count comes in of where we're at. And so we're always hoping that it's higher than the previous year. But it also comes down to the average daily attendance. Are more kids here more often?
Any other questions? Comments?
Well, just the deficit spending is decreasing, but we're still deficit spending, but we actually meet that deficit spending requirement or criteria. That's crazy.
Woohoo.
I don't.
Yeah.
Doesn't make much sense.
Is OPEB a big concern for you?
No, not for us, because
Notice it's going down a
we're
lot.
on pay-as-you-go. So
Mhm.
we have a certain number of retirees who are participating in the health insurance plan until they reach 65. Right now, I think we have about half a dozen of them, and it's a totally manageable amount for us to do. We have an actuarial study, actually, we just finished the most recent one, and they calculate out and tell you that, you really should, if you were going to collect it all, you should have $1.6 million or something put aside to pay these future costs. But we elected a long time ago to do pay-as-you-go because it's a very manageable number for us.
Okay.
And not likely to ever become unmanageable.
We're lucky in that way then.
Yes.
big problem for a lot of people.
I have
It's a
to say
lively
that,
group.
I know,
Sorry.
I have to say that our budget process has gotten my time on the board and the couple years before I came on the board. This is a much more positive procedure, and we're not at crunch time scrambling here at the end. So I would attribute that to the work that you two do early and often. So
Right.
thank you for that. And
I have to add as well, because normally at this time, I've been to a couple of budget sessions where you're feeling like everyone's kind of pointing the finger, it's your fault, it's your fault. And so we're all in this together, but it is true that we're all working together and trying to be transparent, and we can't, we are given the funds of what we're given, and we can't do everything we want, but we can try to prioritize what we can work on. And I think that I can probably sleep better this year just because it's not so stressful. I remember last year this time, it's very wearing. Even though, I'm not, I'm only one person, it's still amazing how burdening it is when you don't have anything in your savings account, not having the above the 3% reserve. So I feel like it is always a sacrifice to save that kind of money, but in the end, I think it's going to let us be able to breathe. And not have that jerk reaction, especially given just in our own little islands at our sites in our district, we have things that can occur. But given at the state level, there's so many things they're projecting the economy to change, and given next year being a presidential election, lots of things to change. So we need to be a little bit more conservative, but with that, it'll give us more flexibility.
oh gosh, I just realized my seat will be up on a presidential election year. Boy.
Wow, lucky. Decisions.
And thank you, Wendy, for all your hard work with this. You really make this happen, so we appreciate you.
Being a sounding board.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I just think it's amazing that there's no public. I haven't gotten one comment from the public about the budget. I mean, it says a lot for you guys and for past boards, and that it's just people don't seem that concerned with what's going on. So it's good. I think it's really good.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot more fun than
Having the room
past
full.
years we've had.
Okay, if there's no more questions, we'll call for a motion.
Make a motion, we approve 11.7, the 2019 and 2020, the budget for 2019-20, and Resolution 1912, reserves above minimum.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any comments from the public? Okay, is there anybody watching?
I haven't looked.
2.
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
Brad and Charlie.
I think Charlie went to the movies.
I was going to say, I
2 other people.
yeah, I was going to say.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
and President Babcock.
Yes. Okay, 11
And thank you for doing the reserve. It makes everything so much easier knowing that's there if, when we do have thin bottom lines, it really makes everybody feel better. So I appreciate that.
Well, I really appreciate not having to make the list.
Mm-hmm. And having
I
the
know we still need to
discussion.
be cognizant of this moving forward, and I think we need to really work on salary, but it just sends a totally different feeling in the district when we're making the list. So, okay, so we're on to the EPA resolution, and I believe this is annual, correct?
Yes. And this was something that was established in, when was it, 2012? 12, yeah. Education protection account. It was, a few years into the recession, and the state set aside a certain amount of money to help schools a little bit with funding. This, again, is one of those pieces that has become part of the local control funding formula, so it's not a standalone amount, but they still identify the amount because the state collects it separately from other things, just as they do with property taxes. So while it doesn't impact our bottom line funding, that piece still has to be identified, and it's only allowed to be used for salaries and benefits. So what we do is we transfer a chunk of salaries and benefits from our unrestricted general fund into this resource to show that that's what that's being spent on.
It's a considerable amount.
It is.
Makes you wonder what you did before you got this.
Everybody was pretty much in a world of hurt. Really, I mean, there were
Yeah.
just mass layoffs around the state.
This
That
is
was the
great.
year the pink slips are close thereafter.
That's actually about the number our reserve should be.
Yeah.
10%.
That'd be nice.
They recommend 10 to 17.
And it can't be used for administrative,
Just teachers,
just teachers.
teachers' salaries and benefits.
And the only thing that I wasn't able to find, I know we're supposed to post that on the homepage, and I wasn't able to find it on a menu, so I don't know where it's at. Do we know for prior years?
It would be in public documents if it's there. I would double check and
On a website?
make sure it's, it's on the front page of the website, there's a link to public documents.
Okay,
And
I
that's
didn't
where
find it.
think
Okay,
If it's not done, then it can be rectified.
okay. It could be there. Maybe it's under resolution. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely in resolutions.
But this actual,
The reporting out of
the accounting part of it needs to be posted, is my understanding, but this, of course, is probably on, yeah.
Any other questions? Great, and this is kind of a lengthy one too, and since it's annual, I don't think we need to read it. Again, it is in the board packet online, and then it will also now be, the current one will be posted under public documents to disclose the amount of money being used from those funds.
Okay. I move to approve the Education Protection Act, Resolution 1910.
A second.
Okay, any further discussion?
President Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Okay, 11.9, the academic calendar. This was brought up at the last, or 2 meetings ago, right? And there was a little bit of worry about the high schools.
Well, we had
ER days.
We had 2 dates posted for the high school, so it's been fixed. So if you were to count up all the ER days for Redwood and Dana Gray, you would get 39. If you were to count all the ER days for the middle school and high school, you would get 39. And the change that happened from the last calendar to this one was in the month of May. The high school was debating back and forth whether or not to have senior boards on the 28th instead of like they did this year and doing it on the 27th. But if they did it on the 28th, they would have to keep the 27th because I really didn't want, none of us wanted to have a Wednesday not be an ER day once we started in on the Wednesday path. But at that point, they had enough input from the staff to say, let's keep it like we did it this year.
Mhm.
So this is the calendar for next year. We had approved a calendar in the October meeting that approved all the breaks, the start day, the end day. This now gives you the marking periods, the ER days, so that parents can plan.
Great.
Any
Just
thought?
one little thing. It's misnumbered in the packet as 11.8 again, so it should be 11.9.
That was the scramble.
That's all I got.
Oh, on the paper, but in the folders.
Because there was another one
yeah.
like that too, but it happens on that Monday.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
I'll move to adopt the academic calendar for 2019-20 as presented.
Second?
Any discussion?
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Okay, I do believe if we want to be somewhat sequential and common sense wise, we need to move 9.2 before 11.10 because those people need to be officially approved as hired before we approve them as being an intern. Okay, all right, so I'm going to stick 9.2 from the consent calendar, the personal action form. So Becky, would you mind telling us what it needs to be the correction again?
So the correction is the first employee listed in the new hires, uncertificated, we have listed as probationary 0, and that employee is going to be temporary because it will be working with a teacher who is going to be on leave.
Okay. So it's temporary 0?
Just temporary.
Just temporary, okay.
Yes,
Not probationary 0.
correct.
Okay. So does everybody follow?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So that's just her status. Any questions? Okay. Ask for a motion.
I move to approve 11.10 Personnel Action Report with the revision of the first hire status to reflect temporary.
So
Well, second?
it would be 9.2, right? Not 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
It will keep its numbering.
Oh, we'll keep the same number?
Yeah.
9.2, okay.
Okay, we have a second, so any discussion? Okay.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes?
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
and Trustee Babcock.
Yes.
Sorry, President Babcock.
Okay, then that moves to us to 11.10, and this is to approve the interns. Again, this is after we've posted jobs and there has been no certificated applicants. We have to apply, hire, and then we have to notify the state that.
There is one correction. There are actually 4 interns on the list now. It does say 3 in the agenda. There were 3
right.
when the agenda was published, but there is an additional staff member there.
And that's what you emailed us today, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think there's even one more that we just hired this week, but we probably can't do that until
Yeah.
to the next agenda. Okay.
Okay, so we have 4 interns on this meeting, added to the list from the several last meeting. Any questions? Can I have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve item 1110, intern permits for certificated staff.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes?
and Trustee Mattson.
Yes.
All right, we have completed our very long list of action items.
In an hour and 14 minutes.
Yeah. Do we need a bathroom or break or any
You good?
stretch break before?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, so we have 3 information and discussion section. So we are going to go to the facilities planning assessment, and is Barry going to start? Becky, Wendy?
Okay. We have, over the last several years, talked about many of the things we need to do with our facilities, and it's always, we really need to look at this over here, and we really need to look at that over there. And we didn't have a big picture of all of the things, so it made it difficult to come up with a priority, so we haven't done much in that direction. This is a very first step in bringing all of those, this over here and that over there, together in one place. and having an outside entity come in and look at the overall condition of some of the things. This is I don't want to say superficial, but I mean, we know that there are some underlying things that probably aren't included in here, but, you know, as there's no need to get that deep into things with this, because this really is sort of a summary of the state of our facilities. This is for you to kind of chew on over the summer. You can, you know, see that the dollar amounts of the totals are a pretty big number, which means probably if we were going to fund all of this, it's not going to come out of our reserves. So we would start looking at prioritizing the things that are in here and deciding if we do want to go ahead with some of these things. We would probably have to discuss the feasibility of a bond. And as you consider that over the summer, in August, we would probably want to consider approving a feasibility study for that. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind over the summer as you're looking at this. And
I was under the impression from previous dialogue that we are maxed out on what we can do as far as bonds, but is that different between new construction or
we do have additional bonding capacity. The question is, will the community support another one?
Right.
And that's where a feasibility study comes in. If we decide we want to go forward and pursue some of these projects,
do we
then
qualify
that would be the
in
next
the
stuff.
hardship category?
The difficulty with hardship is you have to have maxed out your developer fees. And we have not maxed out our developer fees in respect to the community that has passed 2 bonds.
Mm-hmm.
So while that was felt good to do, and I still believe, because I was on the board when we did it, that it was the right thing to do, it does prohibit us from getting hardship funds. There are some hardship things that we could get if they became health and safety issues. But generally speaking, that's, and it's a small, it's not a huge amount that's available there, and the match is pretty high.
And there are going to be some bond funds available or grant applications everybody's going to be going after?
There are state funds to which we may have access. And again, that's part of, once we prioritize the things we do or don't want to try to do, we can look and see what of those are available. A lot of times with those funds from the state, you have to have pretty much a shovel-ready project. And so we would be a little ways away from that. And I think we found that with the modernizations too, that there were things that we applied for from the state as we got into the project, as we got closer to where we were actually doing work and had plans and were kind of ready to go, then applied for some of those. And those aren't always released right away either. Like the ones you talked about there, those were approved years ago. And they're just finally now being distributed by the state. So you have your project. Once you have all of your plans and you are shovel ready pretty much, you send in your application and get in line. And then as they distribute the funds, then they become available. And they generally have a match requirement also.
How much do we have in our deferred maintenance fund?
We have about $600,000 in developer fee funds that have, actually it's a little more than that now. The redevelopment successor agency, because redevelopment agencies went away and they became the redevelopment successor agencies. That's not the right name for it. But anyway, so because the city is still involved in paying those, collecting those fees or those debts, and we still get money from that for a period of time until the city finishes everything it has to do with the prior, what used to be the redevelopment agency. So we're still getting some funds from that. I don't remember how much longer we get those. I don't think it's a whole long time,
It's a
but
couple of years, I think.
yeah, but we've collected, it's more like 700,000 now, I think. And then our developer fees that we collect from construction have been hanging around 50,000 a year. We've been using that to pay for the modulars and for the rent for TLC mostly.
And this $27 million does not include any improvements to the fields? That's a totally separate item, yes?
Correct.
Well, they do have some annual.
There's some annual
Squirrel,
maintenance
mole,
costs in there,
gopher.
but I don't think that's, I don't know if that's,
Yeah.
is that counted in the 27, or is it just
I
facilities
think-
that are in
well-
the 27?
No, there's play areas and play fields.
$18,000 are line item.
So for
There's
improvements,
2.2
yeah.
million.
I don't think the.
So, you know,
playground equipment
that's,
is an
again,
actual
you know,
improvement.
a down-the-road kind of thing to be looking at. Yes, those things are in there. And if, you know, if, I don't know how much you remember the beginning of the modernizations, but every time you tore open a wall, yeah, you found
to be
dry
taken out
rot
of
or
my
something
office.
else terribly, yeah.
Right.
So, you know, the probability is that 27 is, you know, probably considerably more than that. Plus, you can't count on construction costs to remain the same because you're probably looking at a year's, you know, the project going over several years. So costs are going to go up during that time. So you want to sort of hedge against that as well. So 27 is probably a low number.
More like 35, probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of surprised that the NOYO is on the second page and not,
Well, and
is that
just,
because the number of students affected or something? I wonder
well,
how
not
they-
even, that's my two comments were that I was shocked that NOYO wasn't in for new facilities, as the high school has areas that, even though they are the last ones to have to be modern, you know, more modern with bonds, they're on a
Disappointing, yeah.
huge list.
Yeah.
And NOYO is not. And then I was surprised that middle school wasn't on for outdoor covered eating, whereas the high school has a couple of options out there, and they're on the line item list.
Well, I think that's because the high school has a very small area for students to eat, so they can't all congregate together and
So-
eat, where the middle school has plenty of cafeteria space.
I don't know that everyone could fit in there, though, if they wanted to.
There's
Like
a
on a
lot more
rainy
space
day,
there, though.
they're eating in the hallway, they're not allowed in the gym, so there was always a lack of outdoor eating area. So I was just surprised that they didn't see a need for that.
So, good question. When I went through this, those were some of the questions that I had as well. The difficulty with the high school eating is that there are 500 plus students enrolled in the high school, and the student union, I think the maximum capacity is 92. Does that sound about right, Barry?
Yep.
It's right in that area. So that's why that bumped up higher in the priority. In the high school modernization, the gym was completely removed from the modernization when we started the process because we were running out of money. So by removing that whole
Area.
that whole building, it saved an enormous amount of money. And it came down to, if memory serves me correctly, it came down to, do you build the 300 wing, that new wing, or do you take care of the gym? And there was a greater need for that newer wing. So that's my memory of it,
Right.
at least. I don't
And
remember
do
it
we really
completely.
need, I mean, those portables aren't being used right now, are they?
Which ones?
The ones.
The high school portables?
Mhm.
No, I mean, some of this, they addressed all the buildings that we have. Some of this, we need to remove the portables and just get rid of them.
Which is a
be done with
cost.
it. The difficulty is that when you look at Redwood's assessment, Redwood actually needs more space. And my concern is, as we move closer and closer to this preschool for all idea, which is a great, great idea, which we need to do, I think, in the state, where do we put all these kids? And we could do a morning and afternoon session like we are doing with our state preschool right now, but still, where are we going to put more children? We have our new counselor sharing space with Kudos because we don't have any space. So I'm concerned about the Redwood portables because in truth, we need more space at Redwood. At NOYO, what was interesting, I expected those portables to be higher on the priority list But Barry Silva and his team have done a great job of maintaining them, so that's why they're not so high up on the list. It doesn't mean that they are super special and in great shape. It just means that they didn't rank as a high priority. But I also don't want to say that the Redwood portables are a higher priority than the Noyo portables, because the Redwood portables aren't being used to house students. Let me take that back. Many of the Redwood portables are not being used with students, where all of the portables at Noyo are being used for students. So that's kind of the difficulty. Barry was great, though. He was able to walk around with the team from site to site and really explain much of what was going on in the district.
That's what I wanted to shout out to. Barry has a nice paragraph in here saying that this company was really impressed with Barry and the staff, for exactly what you just said, that the staff is maintaining. And we've all been to many, many sites and schools, and we really do, given the resources or lack of, there's quite a bit of pride that goes in with Barry's staff. And Wendy also was complimented in the report of helping with whatever they had questions. So, and I know going from MIG training, all of this is just great to have this up front, because you need to, it sounded like you, back when you were doing the high school, someone made a good decision on deciding to finish off so that it was complete, because there are many, many sites or districts that open up a wall and it's a whole other deal, and they don't even finish what they were working on. Like, they actually have, our schools are actually pretty well maintained. That there was a school up north that they opened up a wall and they had so much old wiring, or they were in a hot climate where they needed air conditioning, and all of the just basic stuff, they couldn't even get to their goal of why they got the bond, and the public wasn't happy. But you have to give constant updates of what you're doing and why it didn't work out, so that the public isn't upset with, that you said you were doing this and it didn't happen, and just being really transparent on the process. And so this is really nice for the public to be able to see what's really wrong, with the sites, and just have to prioritize and cross our fingers that all those things that we can't control, moving forward, and just having a really good discussion.
So, coming back to reality here, for this kind of money, do you see this as achievable in any reasonable period of time? I would not be optimistic that the community is going to be too excited about another bond initiative. From what I heard about the last one, that it was pretty much nip and tuck. So, I mean, if we can't get some type of assistance from the state to do some of these projects,
We'll have to start chipping away at them.
well, I understand that
Yep.
it's going to be, crisis to crisis to crisis, and just the way it works.
Yeah.
I just hope it doesn't get to the point where things get so bad that then the community finally comes on board. So hopefully we can. There's nothing you can do about it except the best you can. So.
Right.
Well, and the idea behind doing this was to give you something to chew on over the summer, and something to think about as we're moving forward. Because there are two ways to look at this. If we start addressing this soon, the bill is smaller.
Sure.
If we wait for this to deteriorate more and more, the bill becomes larger. I don't know what good timing is on this. It's kind of like how we take care of our homes. Do we wait for the roof to completely fall down before we put on a new roof, or do we say, hey, we bought a roof and it had a 20-year warranty and we're on year 23? Should we think about that? So those are things that you have to consider as a board, and then we have to really have the discussion about the planning, and do we need to do a study to see if...
Well, I think you want to do that before you got too far into it anyway, and it's going to be a huge, public education thing.
That was my next thought, is how can we can we put it on Facebook, here's the outlook for our site for, and attach it to something like that, start getting people aware, because we know how hard it is to educate the public on something as exciting as reading this 114-page document.
Right, and I think that's just it. You have to just keep educating, getting your information out before, media twists anything. I think having the bond going on the bond or the ballot in March is going to be helpful to get. I'm not for us, but just the awareness of the schools still don't have the resources with
the state bond.
the state bond. I think that timing is good for, in our benefit to know that there's 1,000 of us districts out there that have different levels of deferred maintenance that we can't address because we don't have the resources.
Well, and I know that, I think it would, from what I understand from CSBA and whatnot, and just common sense, I guess, that if we were going to do it, it would be more beneficial for us to do it on the 2020 because it's a presidential election, which you get more people to the polls versus us trying to play catch up
Right.
and get people to the polls.
That's why we've already sort of started a sort of timeline, so for August to decide, yes, we want to pursue a feasibility study. That would be the next step.
Do you have any idea what that would cost?
No.
No.
But that's where we use some of the developer fee money and.
Do you know how far in advance you started discussing the high school bond?
That was a big district bond. That wasn't just the high school. I think that wasn't that.
I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Usually it's years.
The first one was supposed to do all of it, and then there were 2 huge hurricanes, and the cost of plywood quadrupled, and you couldn't find it to begin with. The cost of everything construction-wise just went through the roof. Plus, they opened some walls and found dry rot. So I don't even think the first one completely finished the middle school. And so when that became apparent, and again, we did a good education campaign with the public explaining, and got the second one passed to be able to finish the rest of what was in that plan. So it wasn't specifically the high school, it was finishing
So
middle school
all
and
of that,
middle
the district, it was you ended up focusing on middle school and then the high school after?
Well, that was kind of the plan all along, was
Okay.
to do that first. I mean, it was all in the plan to do all of the things that we did in the modernization, and the high school was the last one on the list.
Gotcha.
But it was all in that plan, what was.
Because it started at Redwood, didn't it?
No, Redwood was much longer ago. There was
Oh.
they did a roof and something else at Redwood a long time ago. We did Dana Gray. Dana Gray got done, the middle school and the high school.
And Redwood was in 1999, I believe.
Yeah, that was.
And they had to shortchange Redwood because they actually had a plan for a new entrance. That's one of my contentions with Redwood is where's the point of entry? And there's no drop-off. So it was
Which is-
interesting reading this
yes.
because it talks specifically about taking the Redwood log out, which the Redwood log is beautiful. We would move it,
Right.
but creating kind of
True.
a true drop-off like at the high school in Dana Gray, because there's that field space there, and then looking at the staff room and then making that the point of entry and rearranging the front office, because that's the hard part. The front office staff has their back
Feng shui is
to,
wrong.
but they don't know if anybody's coming.
Right.
Because the windows are to their back, where when you look at the high school and the middle school, they have a clearer line of sight. Even with Dana Gray, even at the middle school, even though their backs are to the windows as well, they have a larger space. They have a clearer line of sight. Redwood's just it's just I don't even know how to explain it. I'm stuttering because it makes no sense to me. You walk into the front of the school by the flagpole, and you walk into the bathrooms and the multi-purpose room, and in order to get to
You have to
the
walk through a meeting
office,
room
you
that
gotta
you're
walk
not
through
sure
a
if
meeting
anybody's
room,
in.
or you walk through the principal's office. None of that
Which
makes
is-
sense to me.
Yeah, it's very
You guys
uninviting.
It's just,
placing
it's
the surface
a
border of
difficult
Dana
setup, and what I don't like about it is they're our smallest, littlest kids, and we don't have a
Just
really
says
great
that.
drop-off.
Mhm.
You know, it's better than it was, because we don't have kids walking through the parking lot now, but they're still going curbside and leaving. So it's just something at some point, we're going to have to address. My concern with Noyo right now is that we are looking at aging portable buildings that were purchased in 1990. Well, let's do the math. They've reached the end of life. They were 20-year portables when we purchased them. Well, they've just hit year 29. And yes, Barry and the team have kept them in beautiful shape, but you talk to the kids and you talk to the staff, they really feel shortchanged, and you can't say that anyone blames them. So it comes down to where the priorities are, what we want to pay attention to. We have to address certain things. We have to decide how and when we're going to address them. I mean, we can just throw our hands up in the air and say, well, we're not going to do it now. I think this warrants a very meaty discussion about timelines
Mhm.
and about planning and about priorities. I definitely would say that the portables at the high school do not out-prioritize Noyo. We don't need the portables at the high school. I would say the portables at Dana Gray, really there's one portable that's necessary, and that's for our SH room. In truth, the SH room needs to be a brick and mortar building, or we need to remodel a room inside the main building to make it the SH room. The other portables, I don't think we need to add more buildings to Dana Gray. So when you look at this and they talk about replacing, some of that we can take out.
Mhm.
I do believe that for Noyo, if we are going to keep the makeup of the district as we have it now, with having 5 particular sites, then I would say we need to replace all of the portables at Noyo with either prefab buildings that have a 50-year lifespan, or we save a little money, not my recommendation, and bring new portables in. But it makes more sense to do the prefab buildings because they're not that much more than a portable, and their lifespan is double, more than double. So, or we look at brick and mortar construction, but I have to say, I'm more of a fan of the portable buildings, or not the portable buildings, the prefab buildings, because they're still brick and mortar to a sense.
Now, is the classroom, is that considered portable still, or is that a prefab?
The C Academy Honors
Yes.
Room, that's a portable. It's a triple wide,
Mm.
and that was purchased in 2010.
Yes.
So that's coming up on year 10, which,
Wow.
you know, you and I were working that year. We remember it coming in and thinking, oh, this is a new building, and it's starting to show its wear because it's a portable. But, again, kudos and hats off to our maintenance department. When they see an issue, they fix it. So, as you go through this, it's something that we all want to keep on the forefront, because if we don't plan, we're going to find ourselves in a position where we are going to have to react. Reacting is never a good place.
Were there any big surprises for you?
No,
Okay.
there weren't any big surprises. I was actually, no, I take that back. I was surprised that they found our facilities in as good a condition as they did. Comments that they made, you know, for example, we go to every school in Northern California, you haven't seen anything.
Mhm.
So,
And I want to echo Barry's comments. I was completely surprised at some of the things that scored a 4.
yeah.
Yeah. And some of the things that scored a 2, there were a few, I'm like, why did I think it was that bad?
Right, right. No, I mean, they were a great team to work with. And I always welcome another set of eyes coming in to look at what we look at every single day, you know. And I wasn't surprised with, you know, with what they found. I thought it was a good comprehensive visit. I thought they have, you know, they provided us with a good tool.
At some point in the not too distant future, can you go through this and we don't need to replace this portable, we don't need to replace this portable?
Absolutely.
Kind of whittle that number down to more of a priority list and just,
And what I would say to you, here's my other surprise. So what I would say to you is when I first saw this document and I saw the price tag attached to this document, I thought that was incredibly conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Because I will tell you, the minute we touch that high school gymnasium,
I don't know.
I'm concerned about that.
I mean, I don't know.
So,
It's a pretty sound building. But
that's
The
just,
bathrooms are pretty bad.
well, it's
Yeah.
The public part, not the gym, or the.
well, and in the locker rooms, you have
Yes.
the teacher offices
Yeah.
that are elevated. Well, in the olden days, right, when the school was built 50 years ago, that was so that the teacher could be high above and could have line of
they
vision
checked if you
over
were-
the lockers,
Mhm.
right? Well, now, if you're going to have steps, guess what is required in order to be ADA compliant? You have to have a lift. You don't get to just have stairs.
Or a ramp.
So that building is not ADA compliant, and anyway, it necessarily, absolutely needs a facelift. That's not even, it's not even a question. When I looked at this report though, and I saw the price tag associated with it, in my head, I started thinking, okay, if we took out this portable, this portable, this portable, and we paid to get rid of this group of buildings and this group of buildings to save money on that becomes the emergency money when someone opens a wall and says, oh, there's more work in here than we anticipated. But my concern is that much of this would be with prevailing wage, and it seems like a low number to me. So what I anticipate is that if we do go out for something like this and the community is kind enough to approve something, it would be back to stages, and we would prioritize and who would get what and what would we do, and then what would be the last one, you know, in case we run out of money. And I can see us holding off on the high school gym again, just because you can take that whole building and just stop. You know, it's not connected to anything else, it's a standalone.
Mhm.
Yep.
So,
But I would think accessibility needs to be kind of high on the list.
if and when we decide to do something to that gym, we need to have a really good plan of where we're gonna put all those kids, and what we're gonna do with all the sports, and how, and the timing of it.
We could build a second gym.
MCR,
And
Star
then
Center.
yeah.
We'll Get their gym completed over there.
I just emailed and got an answer from Greg about the cost. So he said not to exceed 7,500, but he said everything is contingent on success. If board doesn't do a bond or it loses, you pay nothing.
Really?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Wow.
So it's not to exceed 7,500, but everything is contingent on success. If board doesn't do a bond or it loses, you pay nothing. So if we work with
Wow.
this particular person, it would be like instead of Coldwell Flores. They would guide us through the whole process, do the studies, do all of the stuff.
The process, the
Yeah.
technical timeline.
Right.
And is this somebody you guys met at a conference or?
So this is the company that Ukiah uses, that Lakeport was using, that Calistoga uses. So in my superintendent's network, talking to folks, Mendo uses them. This has been the group that's been, has the highest success rate and some of the lowest fees.
Cool.
Well, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it does.
I mean,
It's like a guarantee, well, not a guarantee, but it's like
But it's, yeah, you
Well,
don't,
it's-
you don't
yeah.
walk
a
away
money
with-
back guarantee, I
with,
guess.
well, that you don't lose anything if
Right.
you don't have the support
Except for a
of
lot
the
of staff
community.
time.
Well, and originally when we had gone through this company, we'd asked, you know, we don't we don't know how to begin this process. And it was their recommendation to work with Schoolworks, because this was 10 times less money than doing a facilities master plan. Facility master plan is anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000. And this wasn't even close to that. And the three of us had not heard of doing something on this kind of scale. So working with the company that this is all they do, they've really been able to help us save a little bit of money. But if
So
we, go
Would
ahead,
they
yes.
have thoughts on next steps? Like, I'm thinking about how can we take this and
Yes,
educate the community?
that's what will, if you want to pursue next steps, that's what August will be. It will be approving a feasibility study and discussing next steps.
Right, but like, yeah, so.
So
'cause we
this
wanna
is
use
a
this,
starting
right?
point.
Yes.
This is a,
Mhm.
okay, this is in your lap now. So now we find out if the community is interested in supporting the idea, and then it's a whole scripted
Sure.
dance from start to finish
Sure.
about what you do, when you do it,
Okay,
what you say, how you say it, all of that, and they walk you through all of that.
okay. Because I'm thinking, it'd be great to get a message from this out into the paper, like out in the community. Like, we have no number ones, right? Which is great. Like, okay, there's not an emergency here, but we have a lot of work to do. So,
Well, I
I mean, this'll
think
be-
leading up to the August meeting is the time to do that, because it will be on the agenda,
okay,
and if you decide to do that. And so the weeks leading up to that meeting would be a good time to start the PR campaign, because people are going to see it on the agenda, and they're going to get nervous, and they're going to start getting twitchy, and so getting as much information, starting the education campaign. And I think, again, Greg will help us with that, too. Help us with how do you introduce this to the public? What do you tell them now that will allay their fears, kind of
Right.
thing?
And a lot of the public still doesn't understand that money isn't used, because we say, when we were kind of saying we're having a hard time, how are we going to pay for all of our PERS and STIRS, and we don't have enough money, but they're saying, I'm still paying on the school. Why don't you have any money? But people don't even understand the basics of that, let alone what our needs are. So we need to educate
I
the
get a
public
few
just
phone
on.
calls every time the property tax bills come.
How
and
come
say,
you're
"What are you
still
doing with this
asking for money?"
Where is it? Where is it in here? Why isn't it, and you
Why don't-
explain to them that that's going to pay back the bonds. And
Right.
that doesn't even actually pass through our hands. It goes directly through the county of Mendocino and, into there and out of there to the bondholders.
And again, this is one of those topics where a feasibility study, I think, is absolutely necessary before we jump into this. And the reason we jumped into this now, because people have asked me that, Becky, the district has 2 bonds already, why are you even looking at this now? Because if we wait until we have a bunch of number ones, we're going to be in
it's too
trouble.
late.
And we need to be proactive, not
Yeah.
reactive.
Yes.
And that's where we're trying to get from the facility side of things is, let's do preventative maintenance, not restorative maintenance.
And if we are going to start touching portables and paying for the money to get them out, it's a lot of money. We could spend what little we have left on just getting rid of buildings right now with nothing to show for it. So that's why we have to do this in such a way that we are getting the biggest bang for our buck, and that we are planning and being preventative, not reactive, and that we have some foresight. I'm being very honest with you. The preschool initiative will pass. At some point, it will pass. And if it were to pass in the next 2 years, we are in trouble, because what would happen is we would react and we would get new portables, and we would be back in the conundrum that we are in right now. And so that's my concern. I do not want to buy any more portables in Fort Bragg Unified for the rest of my career. So in an emergency, they're wonderful investments. But right now, we don't have an emergency. If I were to place a bet, though, The preschool initiative will pass. It's just a matter of when. What will we do? We can do morning and afternoon sessions, that's fine, but we're going to be putting kids on top of kids. We can't use the portables right now in existence at Redwood. We would be paying money to have them removed, which is 30,000 a portable?
About 15 apiece.
Okay, about
to
15
20
apiece, but by the time this happens, I'm going to say it's going to be 20, because that's just our luck. So let's say it's 15 to 20 to remove each portable, and then we're going to be paying prevailing wage to bring the next set in. And then all we've gotten out of it is another 20-year portable. So that concerns me. This is just about planning ahead, having some foresight, knowing that we have things on the horizon. My other concern is that at the middle school and at Dana Gray, our neediest kids, who are students in our severely handicapped classroom, aren't aging portables. They need to be in ADA compliant facilities that we don't have to worry about the roof leaking or the ramps rusting out. Again, kudos and hats off to our maintenance crew, because they have kept those buildings going, and my son's in those buildings, and he's doing just fine in those buildings, and they are ADA compliant. They are not brick and mortar buildings. They are aging buildings. It's a matter of time. So those are some of the things that we need to look at.
So going back to Wendy's statement about doing some PR a few weeks before the August meeting, is there something that you guys can come up with that paints this picture?
I would ask Greg,
So
because
we'll-
they
okay.
do this for a living. They know, like I said, they have a complete script
Right.
of, this date you do this date you do that. And so we would check with him, what do you think? Do we do, preventative hysteria?
They have a true, they have a true
Or-
roadmap.
Yeah,
They have a true roadmap.
They will.
on-
So they'll
Table
say,
system.
it's not going to be, well, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be an absolute answer. Yes, you do this. This is the way to do it.
It's not their
So,
first rodeo.
Mm-mm.
They
So-
will walk us through this entire process.
Okay, so because our next meeting's not until August 8th, you'll let us know during the summer if we can
Yes.
help in any way.
Yes.
And the other thing that we can do is we can contact Greg, because he actually comes to board meetings, or he can call in. We could.
Like I said, I just texted him after you asked me the question, and he answered me. So, I mean,
He's
I
very
emailed him.
He's
responsive.
pretty spot on
Yeah.
with things, and so we can ask him to come in if you have questions for him. If we can't get his schedule just right, I'm going to say the ugly little S word of special meeting. We could hold a special meeting to specifically talk about this on a date.
I think he put the August meeting on
Did he
his
put that on his
calendar.
calendar?
Yeah.
Okay.
August
Okay.
8th.
Because he was talking about trying to be here tonight, but he's in San Diego.
Great.
So the S word.
Special meeting.
He think that we're okay on timeline? I mean, to try,
Yes.
okay.
Like a year
It's a
over.
little tight, like he would
Yeah,
have
it's-
liked to have done the feasibility study
the
approval, now or in July, but I said we didn't have a meeting in July. So he said, no, August will work, August will be fine. And because they have it down to,
So you're only a month
'Cause we
off,
can't
which is
do-
like six, I don't want to use 6 months or a year off, so that's not too far.
We can't do, could we put that on the June? We can't do action on special? What's
for what?
I mean, the July,
July, to put that on the,
No, he said August is fine.
okay.
I think he's got it on his calendar.
And the difference between your July meeting and August meeting is like 2 weeks.
weeks.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
because we're way at the end of July, okay.
Right.
I'm just trying to, because, I want to miss the boat if, because otherwise we gotta wait for another.
No, he would have told us if that was not.
He's a firecracker. He'll get it done. The timeline that he had laid out was bam, bam, bam. We're gonna do this. This is how it's gonna work. I'm confident that
Yeah.
Because we've got a couple, I mean, as far as the board's time, we're in a new, because I'm assuming this is where we really start hitting the pavement with people, but we're also going to be in an LCAP. So I just thought if we could move it a month sooner to spread out some of the things, but.
But maybe that's also a way to reach our audience as well, because we're going to be having more committees.
It'd be interesting to see if he would recommend having something on registration day. I mean, so I'm just saying our next meeting not till after that, so let us know if we can.
Well, we can call him. We could definitely put material out on registration day to say at the next board meeting, which is in 2 days, this will be a discussion item. So we can do things like that.
That's actually
And a
just about
feasibility
right.
study right now is still far off from the mark of you making a decision if we're going to do
Mhm.
this or not.
Right.
Well, but I think I think you're more of the education piece of the state of our district.
Mhm.
Good point.
We could put
Not
this,
necessarily that we're gonna try to go for a bond, but if we front load, more, this is the state of the district.
what the needs
I
are.
think
Right.
he will have an opinion on what we should say and when we should say it, absolutely.
okay.
And I think we would be probably pretty wise to heed that. I mean, we did that with the other bonds, and it was successful. I mean, they scripted everything, and it worked. So I
This is-
think we have to rely on.
This is a great tool to use. I'm glad we did it. Thanks.
Yeah, even if nothing comes of it, we have this. I mean, this, like I said, we've talked about this over here and that over there, and this brings it all to one place, and we can see and look at, do we agree or disagree with the priority level? But it's all in one place now, at least, to look at.
Did you get a chance to review this before it was finalized?
Yes.
Okay.
And just in case anybody's watching or comes back to this later down the road, this entire book is online in our board packet as a PDF. So every single page
Mhm.
is electronically provided in the board packet, so folks can see it, digest it, print it for their friends and family.
It's interesting reading, actually.
It's a lot of
It
ink,
is.
but it's there if anybody wants to view it. It's not a secret. And I really appreciated that about Schoolworks, that they sent us a PDF of this. I thought that was
Mhm.
fantastic. So,
You can even have it on display at the district office if you want.
We'll leave a copy out front.
There you go.
we
I was trying to
will.
think, is there any place in town, I mean, do people go to the city? Is there a place somewhere downtown
I
that,
don't know we're ready for that. I think
Okay.
that's,
That's too far,
yes,
yeah,
that's
down the road.
way too early.
But you could definitely have it on the,
And is he thinking hospital just passed one, right? So they won't go for another one.
right, because if you have too many bonds on the ballot, it can factor into your success, or it
I
could-
know that Mendocino is considering a bond for the November election. I know Ukiah is considering a bond for the November election.
Right, but if they have a city bond, a county bond, a school bond, a hospital bond, it's like.
it does
They'll
matter.
just say no to everything.
They
if there's too many.
know who's looking
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's a good time or
Well,
not.
they'll assess it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they really are very thorough.
And they're not the company that is looking to make a buck, in the sense that I'm going to push you and push you to push you to get on the ballot because I want to make a buck. They're really strategic in their reputation, and they have a high reputation of a passing rate. They're
They
not
wanna
going to
get
jeopardize
paid.
that. They're not going to jeopardize that. So they will look at who we are, who we have, what our history is, and really tell us very honestly, nope, not this time, or
Close,
you
keep
close.
going,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they're not going to waste their time and energy, and they're not going to waste our time and energy, because it doesn't do any good to put all that energy out and it doesn't move. And that's why I believe when you asked about the feasibility study, there's that contingent. If it doesn't pass, you're not paying.
that's amazing.
It is, yeah, that's telling of their integrity.
So I would 100% trust their roadmap. They've done this more times than we will ever do.
Okay, so then the next step for us is that this will probably be an action item in August.
To do a feasibility study,
Right.
to approve a feasibility study.
To do what?
To approve a feasibility study.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions for Barry or other staff? Okay. Sorry, I'm writing those. Okay, 12.2, the Parent Advisory and LCAP committees. So for a few months now, we've been talking about trying to get authentic feedback and contributions from families for the LCAP. We're going into our new 3-year cycle. And we had kind of thrown around the idea of trying to have less meetings, maybe do a half an hour for LCAP and a half an hour for a safety and having a parent advisory, so we could kind of throw in different things throughout the year. So we wanted to see if we could maybe set the, when those meetings were going to happen and who might be on those, or who might be invited. Right? Okay. So do we still think that this is a good way to try to tackle a few issues throughout the year with this group?
I think it's worth a try.
Yeah.
And I'd like us to really look at doing it during the school day when the kiddos are in school. Redwood has had great success with holding parent meetings right after the start of school, so moms and dads drop off their kids. The meeting starts at 8:30. So they've had success with that. Our DLAC has followed that model, and when I walked into the room for our DLAC meeting and there were 10 or 12 people there, I was completely shocked. It was great. It was fantastic. Well, it started right at 8:30. Drop off your kids at school, come on over. So I'd like to try in that model and see if we can get more parents available. I think what's tricky about evening meetings, it's depending on the age of your kids. Is it bath time? Is it book time? Is it dinner time? It just makes it really difficult because, anyway, you're all parents, you know. So I would like to try the model of an 8:30 meeting if we can strategically plan it and then move those meetings around. You know, maybe we do the first one at Redwood, we do the next one at Dana Gray, we do the next one at the middle school, we do the next one at the high school. And that way.
Now, that's going to be tricky when you say that because of the start times.
Well, if we always had it at 8:30, Dana Gray, the kids could be out on the playground because they're older, and the bell rings at 8:35, or we move the times of the meetings.
I mean, I'm just thinking of middle school. They start at
8
o'clock. I just say 8 o'clock because I don't want to be late.
Yeah.
But if
Oh,
you
I see what
have
you're
to,
saying.
you know,
Yeah.
if
so-
you're doing it at 8:30,
But
if they
it'll-
only have a middle school student, then it would be kind of but they could go in and visit with the ladies in the front office.
Grab a cup of coffee before the meeting.
Yeah.
So it's up to you on how you'd like to do it. I would like to propose that we look at 4 meetings for next year with this advisory group and model it with a half hour of kind of emergency preparedness and having that discussion, or an LCAP. And maybe we don't need to have that much with emergency preparedness. We are having a meeting in July, on July 29th, and getting the folks together to start the pre-planning at the district's level. So it's
And
up
can we
to
just
you.
pause there for a minute?
Yes.
Scott, you've got that on your calendar? Because I believe you were interested in that meeting. So July 29th, it's at 2 o'clock. No, okay, great. And then Mary, I believe, is, oh, okay. Anna, you're so good.
So
Okay.
it'd be great if we could do that at 4 times a year. And go ahead.
I worry a little bit about trying to pack it into 30, I mean,
8:30 to 10:30?
well, or I don't know whether, do you guys, I mean, I go to a lot of meetings, as you guys do too. I mean, maybe we should just have a parent advisory committee meeting, and whatever comes up on the agenda, you know, you could have a goal of a time, but I don't know about shifting the, you know, we were talking about one time about having certain parents come and then they can leave, and then the different parents that are interested come. I just don't know how that's going to work. I mean, 30 minutes is not very long.
No. I mean, at that point, you're just reporting. You're not having a discussion.
Right.
Right, well, that's why I liked to just change the title to like Community Parent Advisory Committee, and then that's just anyone that could come in, you would just tell them maybe the topic. I don't know how you would get the agenda out, but tell them we're going to be discussing LCAP. Maybe you would have to, you don't really have an end time, but you just take advantage of the folks that are coming in to get engagement from them, and it's just one aspect to communicate with the community and families. And then obviously, if you feel like there's even more discussion, you've kind of got them engaged, and say, well, we'll have a special meeting, we'll take it back to the board, we'll do a special meeting on, you know, to further discuss, you know, X, Y, Z. So it's just kind of getting the word out and then communicating, and then I like capturing it at a different time, because if you were to just go and do your Roadhouse, around to each group, like Parents Club or Site Council, you get the same group of parents. So I like how a different time might bring out a different group of families to get a different perspective.
Well, and the purpose of a parent advisory committee would be for us to revisit our LCAP goals, look at what we're doing with our priorities, and make sure that our parent group has input to that, and not necessarily agrees. That we gather input, that we gather that discussion to say, okay, this is where the priority is. If we did a parent advisory committee, that could be the umbrella for many things. That could encompass the emergency preparedness and the LCAP and all of it. So, and if we make the agenda very clear for folks so that you know what those topics are we are going to be discussing, and then always have a place for other, knowing that we're going to try and keep to an hour as much as possible, and that any of the others move to the next meeting, or if the group feels like the other is more important, that we can renegotiate that agenda at that time.
And I like changing it to a community advisory so that we could get just other community members that, maybe some people on Rotary that heard your, just interested people that have extra time. I don't know if we could come up with some clever name, but CAC doesn't sound very exciting, but I think, like the Pod Squad, I think that's such a cute little thing. But,
We could
I think
call
the
it a
more-
community
the
advisory
more-
panel. But regardless of what we call it, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
We need to have a community advisory group.
Yes.
And that's really the purpose of it.
or even just call I don't know,
Community advisory.
school input
Um,
group, I don't know.
So, but we want to get people together. We want to talk about the issues that are pressing to the district. We want to gather input, and we want to be able to bring the board authentic communication and input from our community. That's
Yes.
what this is
Yep.
about.
And not the same people that always go to Parents Club.
Well, and the same people who always go to Parents Club,
Could come.
bring it on, but bring a
Exactly.
friend.
Right.
We just want it, we want to demonstrate to our community and to our stakeholders that we're not trying to get the same people.
Right.
We're not looking for a rubber stamp, we're looking for authentic input. And our parents who are always at the same parent club meeting, God bless them. We need their input as well, because they are at all the meetings, they
Right.
are at the ground floor of all the schools. We just need to be able to make sure that we are soliciting input from all of our stakeholders.
Right.
And I would also, which will definitely, the time of day of the meeting will help facilitate that, is I want to include students. When we're talking about what the priorities are I just think, the MIG talked about that too, as including, students in that discussion. And they would only need to be there on certain days and times, but it's amazing what they can come up with.
So, in moving forward with this, information and discussion, when we come back to the August meeting, I would like to have a proposal for you for 4 dates with locations and times.
Great.
And then we'll coordinate that with our administrative team to make sure they're on board with that. And then in the August meeting, we can advertise those times and locations and dates.
Great. And then we will figure out which two, or up to two of us, those dates fit into calendars.
Right.
Okay. All right, that's great. Thank you very much for letting well, it's not on the calendar yet, but
We'll get
it's
there.
closer than it's been. Okay, so the 12.3, the superintendent evaluation tool. I was trying to move things off of our workshop onto the agenda with a relatively short meeting. Do you think we could do any work on that, or do we want to wait? Do we want to wait until we have a few more
Samples.
tools? Yeah.
Yeah,
me
I'd
see
also
what-
like to get Becky's input on,
I'd like to just kind of dig around in AXA a little bit, which is the Association for California School Administrators, and the CSBA. I know I just sent you the CSBA.
And that's very similar to what I found.
Yes. So Let me do a little digging, and then I will have it for you before the July 24th. Because the other thing I'm going to do is ask some of the county superintendents to ask them to send me their tool,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can look at what other districts are
Mhm.
doing.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
July 24th. Thank you. Okay, so any advanced planning for suggestions for future board meetings?
So we'll have the June 13 minutes on the next meeting, Anna. We'll have the June 13 minutes for August. Mm-hmm. So we'll have two meetings. Okay, because I noticed that wasn't in our consent calendar. Yeah, no worry. I just want to make sure no one forgot. Yeah, it's mindful that you're deferred. Okay. And then I know it wasn't last year, but the year before, we invited new staff. So it's always nice, and I know they may not attend, but to introduce new staff. I know it was at the Diedrichs when we had. So I thought, I'm trying to think, because I feel bad. I mean, we had, what did I say, 290 years of experience that retired last year. I'm just trying to think of how to do a mindful, but a moment where, I don't know if this is even feasible, but maybe the first meeting in August, we have our closed session maybe at the end, and we have, at 5 o'clock, we have like a light snack and coffee and tea or something to welcome new staff. And they could we could kind of have like a little, toast to them with coffee and tea and meet and greet, 'cause it's nice to meet them outside of their classroom, because when you go to meet them in their classroom, they're usually busy. So as a board member, it'd be nice to be able to meet them in an informal way, and they could choose to stay for the meeting, or they would just leave, and then we could do our closed session after, because I know it's difficult to get here even earlier than 5. And then having one at the end in June, like the 13th, we could have had that same thing, where at 5 o'clock we'd have a coffee, tea, light snack, like a cracker or a cookie or something. And just to be able to, high five them for their retirement, or any other staff member that wants to acknowledge them, and just kind of have more of
I think it's a great idea.
just something that we can do as a board, that we could, I could bring
Yeah.
coffee.
Invite
and
other
cookies.
staff too. I mean, just.
Exactly, just to
make it
have
an
that,
open house.
because there really isn't time. That's time isn't on our side, and it feels very, there's staff that I don't get to see that, you want to say, gosh, have a great summer, or, my, son enjoyed your class. I mean, you don't have that moment, and I just feel like it'd be nice to capture, although, like I said, it's nice to offer, and maybe not everyone's available, but it just would be a nice little social thing to do at the beginning and the end.
Our August 8th board meeting is the second duty day for our teachers. Our
Oh.
classified are completely back that day, though. So
That might be tricky, or a good thing, I don't know, 5 o'clock?
that's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because there'll be some level of panic on trying to get ready for kids, and there'll be some level of, oh, we just started,
Mm-hmm.
let's go. So,
Yeah, it
but
might
we-
be nice for
we-
them
we
to take
can
a
do-
break and have a snack.
Yeah, we can do any of that.
And can you remind me when the all-staff day is?
August 9th.
The Friday, it's a Friday.
And that's your speakers? Is that your
We have a
ring?
speaker coming in from 8:30 to 12:30.
What's that date again?
August 9th, Friday, August 9th.
That's at Cotton Auditorium?
Yes.
Okay.
I know that my recollection of inviting new staff to the board meeting was incredibly sparsely attended, and I think it was because it was the first week of school.
That year.
So I don't know that we wouldn't be better off to move it to September.
Oh.
Okay,
So just a thought.
right, when it's the first week of school.
We had like 3 people come.
Right, but that's true, when, sometimes it doesn't fall on the first week, but this year it does. Or their
This is the first duty
for
week. Last
duty
year, I
week.
think it was
First
first week of
week.
school.
Right, so maybe this will be a little
Actual.
bit,
Well, we can decide.
right, whoever's at agenda setting and, for
Yeah.
August, who is it? Do we know?
I don't have that list with me. But I've got it down.
It is Mary.
Okay, anything else? Any suggestions? Any ideas? Okay, so housekeeping for families, July 8th, Aries is open for online registration. August,
It may not be actually July the 8th, it will be the week of the
Okay.
8th. We don't want to commit to the 8th, we'll be testing it.
okay. How about the next week, so the,
Well, we'll send out an all-call.
15.
Yeah.
Everybody will get
No,
that
it
wonderful
will be
auto dialer.
during that week.
The 1st of
Probably
July.
early in the week, But to save people feeling the need to call in and say, it's not open, it will be that week,
Okay.
sorry.
We'll send out an all-call when it's
New
officially open.
families aren't on the, they're not on the on-call yet, correct?
I'm sorry?
New families coming into the district,
Yes. it
If
will
they've
be.
enrolled, they
then
are.
they're already on it, okay, good.
and then Tuesday, August 6th, that's our new and exciting registration day. And the 7th is teacher duty days, and the 8th is our next official regular meeting. We are meeting on July 24th. Okay, and I will bring snacks to that because I messed up tonight. Important things, right?
To the August?
No, July.
Oh, July, okay.
Okay, all right.
Just before, I was just gonna make a comment that if you want, it might be nice to have these when school starts at each site, so I'm gonna give mine back to you guys to distribute as you see fit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a great idea.
'Cause I mean, my kids might like looking at it, but you'll have more use for it.
Okay.
I will
Great.
probably eventually return mine as well, but,
I'll just take them if you want.
okay.
Yeah. But
They're
they're
exactly
really
the same as the
good.
PDF version.
Right.
There's no difference.
Right.
They're
I don't know.
quite pretty, though.
I know, I was gonna say, waiting for someone in the lobby or something.
Coffee table.
I know.
It's up to them.
Okay.
All right. Then I have a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Jerry, you're
So
usually
moved.
Yes.
right there. And a second?
You're gonna break my streak.
I second.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for watching.